Hello and welcome to this talk of offensive security tactics with Kali Linux by myself, Aqeeb Hussain. This talk is aimed towards all new and existing Cybex Linux students to gain a basic understanding of Kali Linux, why we use Kali Linux over other versions of Linux, and some tools commonly used in network attacks. So I'd like to start off with what is Kali Linux. Kali Linux, previously known as Backtrack, has been developed and maintained by Offensive Security and is one of the leading penetration testing operating systems alongside Parrot and Black Arch Linux. Kali Linux is also heavily packaged with ready-made and installed tools for offensive security tasks and digital forensics, which can easily be accessed. Unlike some versions of Linux, such as Red Hat, CentOS, Kali Linux comes with a graphical user interface, allowing you to access all installed tools with the click of a mouse button, and the ability to pin your items in toolbars, and to access documents using a keyboard and mouse, so you're actually able to see your documents rather than seeing a black screen known as a command line. This sort of functionality is very helpful for penetration testers who are beginning their training and just about understanding the use of sort of attack tools and attacks. Of course, when you feel more comfortable with Linux itself, you can move on to more advanced forms of Linux such as Black Arch, Gentoo, and Arch Linux. These versions of Linux are designed for you to create more custom versions of a Linux operating system and to make more custom improvements, which you may feel that Kali Linux isn't offering. So moving on to the side of offensive security with Kali Linux. Kali Linux has many different tools which can help you with specific penetration tasks, which is why it's one of the most well-known operating systems, because it's got a suite of tools ready for you to access and use. However, in this presentation, I'd like to discuss briefly a small number of tools which are commonly used in network-based penetration testing. The first tool is Nmap, also known as Network Mapper. It was developed by Gordon Leon. Nmap is one of the primary tools which is used to identify a selected target on a network and to identify open services on that target, which can potentially be exploited. Nmap is a tool which has many benefits, which range from being used to profile a target with the option of trying to evade detection, or you can profile your target more aggressively. You can also try to evade network defenses. You can discover services and versions which could be installed on your target, in addition to Nmap being an attacking tool. So Nmap itself, just to clarify, Nmap itself is not an attacking tool. However, with thanks to extended components of Nmap, such as its scripting engine, known as NSE, standing for Nmap Scripting Engine. This allows Nmap to be used for additional tasks, such as cracking passwords for certain services. Now, certain services being one of the web servers known as Apache, or Nginx, or WordPress, which is a content management system. These are very specific services which the Nmap scripting engine can offer very specific attacks towards. The second tool I want to discuss is very similar to Nmap in some ways, is called Netcat. Netcat is a network troubleshooting tool which gives it the ability to send connections to devices, helping network administrators to profile devices, receive connections, and detect service and software versions. Now, the detection of service and software versions is a offensive security tactic known as banner grabbing. However, one of the catches about Netcat is that it produces way less overhead and traffic than Nmap does, which essentially means that it does the same job as Nmap, but with less data being sent to the target, which therefore means that Netcat has a lower chance of triggering any potential network defenses. Now, of course, as a network administrator, you can use Netcat to help you to diagnose and troubleshoot a network. However, in our case, with the context of offensive security tactics, we make use of Netcat to send and receive malicious connections, which can assist us to compromise a network target. Finally, I'd like to talk about Hydra. Now, Hydra is a multi-service online password cracker, which helps us to gain access to remotely accessible services with the use of username and password. Now, Hydra can connect to a given service, and with a list of usernames and passwords, or just a list of passwords against known usernames, we can try to gain access into a target system through a specific password attack known as a dictionary attack. A dictionary attack is when you pass a list of potential passwords to a service and you make several attempts to log in order to gain access into your target system. Now, in the context of password attacks, a dictionary attack is just one type. There are many other password attacks which are not always based online, and they can still allow us to gain access to systems. Such attacks would not produce high volumes or any network traffic at all, and would still allow us to complete the objective of gaining access to a target system. So in terms of passwords, I'd like to talk about word lists. Now, in terms of a dictionary attack, a word list is a key component used in a dictionary attack, which is also recognized as a brute force attack. Now, these word lists in a standard Kali Linux machine can be found in a very common path, a very common file path, which is listed on the presentation, /usr/share/wordlists. Now, there's many word lists within this folder, which are very specific and designed for specific purposes. One of the very key word lists that I want to talk about is rocku.txt. Now, rocku.txt contains a very large number of potential passwords at an exact total of 14,341,564 passwords, potential passwords. Now, this word list with its sheer size can prove to be effective because of the number of different combinations, which can be tested against systems. Word lists can also be used for other operations, such as trying to uncover folder structures of a target website. Now, this would still be considered brute force because we're trying to profile the target website further. Now, why would we do this? This would be to explore target website, to identify and exploit any vulnerabilities which could be on the target website. So just a bit more of a background in terms of password attacks. One of the most common password attacks are against services known as SSH. SSH, which is also known as Secure Shell. Now, Secure Shell is a service which allows Linux users, and it's also just been implemented to Windows in certain versions of it. It allows Linux users to remotely access a machine by entering their password, or a user can configure their SSH access using SSH keys, which is a different method of authentication, and it can mitigate against a password attack. However, in this context of, let's say a user has configured their machine to allow password authentication and there are no defenses at the SSH service, this allows us again to cause an online password attack with a given word list, such as what I've stated, rockq.txt. Now that's the Linux side. There's also the Windows equivalent, which is RDP, Remote Desktop Protocol. This allows Windows users to remotely access systems with a full graphical user interface. Now, brute force attacks can still be applied to RDP the way they can to SSH. And one of the things about RDP is in now times like now of COVID-19, RDP password attacks have increased because of the amount of people working from home, which is a problem. Now, I'd like to end off with a small discussion about why Kali Linux and why not a regular Linux machine. In other words, if you're already a Linux user and you're using something like Linux Mint or the latest version of Ubuntu Desktop, well, why not just use your Ubuntu Desktop rather than coming onto Kali Linux? Well, the thing is, a regular Linux machine, which can fall under the category of Ubuntu, as I said, Linux Mint, Linux Elementary, these are all home desktop based Linux distributions. Now, none of these distributions would be expected to have specialized tools such as Hydra, Nmap, or any other specialized security tool. Now, Kali Linux is a flavor of Debian, which is one of the most user-friendly Linux flavors, and it's been developed specifically for offensive security tasks, helping penetration testers in a wide category of penetration testing tasks, as stated in the presentation, ranging from network, web, system, physical pen testing, and also wireless. Kali Linux is also, on the other hand, packed with digital forensic tools, which are better suited for forensic analysts. This shows Kali Linux is developed for a specific purpose, to serve penetration testers of all skill levels and forensic audiences with ready-made tools to perform testing on networks, websites, and other forms of digital technology. Of course, if you have any questions which haven't been clearly answered in this webcast, please email me at the given email and I will try to clarify any queries further. I hope this has been helpful for you all, and I would like to thank you for watching. Take care.